My name's Father Stephen Willis, and I have the job of being the parish priest of the Shrine of Our Lady of Willesden in North West London. I've been a priest now since 1990, and I speak obviously from the Catholic tradition. And in a sense it's interesting that you're asking me questions here, because the whole business of dreams and, in the Christian interpretation, visions, which flow on from that, have part of the history of this place, of this church.
How does the Catholic faith perceive dreams, whether that's ambition or just when you fall asleep?
Well, I suppose when it comes to ambition or aspiration, the church wants everybody to have aspirations for the good. Yeah? That includes for their own benefit, but obviously not at the expense of others. There are many ambitions that the church has for the human race, that all people should live together in peace and in justice, with respect for one another. Okay, that's a huge ambition, but that is an ambition for all peoples. So there's at that sort of level you can say that is a dream for God's people, a dream which we believe God has planted in our hearts, even though sometimes we fall from it. There is also, for the Christian person, whether they're a Catholic or a member of another denomination, there is the dream, the aim, the ambition of heaven. Yeah? This life on earth is not the end. It's a time of preparation. It's a time when we refine ourselves, hopefully gradually becoming better people, so that at the end of our lives we're prepared for what we sometimes call the vision of heaven. Again, we don't tend to use the word dream so much, but we do use the word the vision of heaven.
When some people dream, they visualize further events. Does God communicate through dreams?
It's a bit of a difficult one, but I would have to say that in the scriptures, we look at the scriptures, we can see that God has spoken directly to people through both dreams and visions. And perhaps I explain a little bit about that to you, and I've got some notes because I'm not an expert on it. But in the Christian tradition, we go back into the Old Testament, and we know that God uses dreams and visions. Sometimes, if you like, a vision is like a waking dream, that in a sense you are awake, but there is something very much deeper that you are able to sense that perhaps those around you can't sense. Several times in the Bible, visions are used to, and dreams are used to communicate with people. And in fact, in the Old Testament, it was normal. God's people often had amongst them had people who had visions. And if there was a time when very few people were having visions, it was in fact understood that they wandered away, that God wasn't giving them the blessing of that direction, and they needed to come back. So the lack of visions was sometimes seen as being part of come from disobedience to God. And in the Old Testament, God uses visions to reveal his plan to his people, to put people in the right place, to direct them in the way to go. In the book of Genesis, which is the opening book of the Bible, Abraham is used by God, and God uses a vision to restate his promise to his people. He reminds Abraham that he would have a son and he would be the father of many nations. Now God does that with a dream. So that is God very directly in the words of the Bible. Yeah. We have Jacob, who has a great dream. With his mother's help, he stole Esau's firstborn inheritance. And then he gets Esau's anger and he flees, and on his journey he has a very famous dream. It's the dream of Jacob's ladder. And Jacob, we're told, falls asleep and he sees rising from his pillar to heaven a ladder, and the angels of God ascending and descending. And in this country, for sure, in the medieval period, there were in some churches sculptures of this great ladder. There's one in Dorchester Abbey in Oxfordshire, and that comes directly from the Bible. So in the Bible record, we definitely have that's just a couple of examples, but we definitely have a lot of dreams. Those two come from the Old Testament. In the New Testament, visions are used quite often to provide information that doesn't come from elsewhere. And as I say, you've come to me in the Christmas season, and that begins with the angel appearing to Mary, and declaring, "You're going to bear the Saviour of the world, and you will call him Jesus." And then the next step is that Joseph, we understand, is going to bring their betrothal, it's not marriage but betrothal, which is an important period for Jewish people, to an end, to spare her publicity. She's become pregnant before they've got married, and that would cause a lot of difficulties in the locality. And he's thinking, how can I spare her the publicity of this? And we're told that an angel appears to Joseph in a dream and tells him no, he should proceed with his betrothal and then to his marriage. Okay. Only yesterday, January the 6th, we kept the feast of the Epiphany. Strange word, it means showing something, showing forth a manifestation. And we recall how the wise men, sometimes called the Magi or the kings, come to Jesus guided by a star. And we're told that on the way, they're looking for this newborn king. So where do they go? They go to the local ruler, to the local palace, Herod. And Herod's a canny man, and he's not very happy that there is apparently a new ruler, as he sees it, because he's in charge. And he's very careful, and he says to the kings, "Oh, please go ahead. He's not here. Please go ahead on your journey." And he calls in the local prophets and the local holy men and saying that these men have come to me seeking the newborn king. What do your prophecies say? And they say, well, he's to be born in Bethlehem. So the king says, King Herod says, go on to Bethlehem, greet the newborn king, and come back and tell me all about him. Well, actually, he will plot the murder. We know what happens next, because the kings go, they arrive at the place where Jesus is, they lay down their gifts, and then we're told in the scriptures, being warned in a dream, they go home by a different route. They don't go back to Herod, because Herod wants to kill this newborn king. So there's a very definite, again, statement in the scriptures. A dream is used. So at that level, dreams are very important. Now, it doesn't mean to say that all of us individually get marvellous dreams telling us exactly what to do, but certainly there are times when a dream is used in the Christian tradition to point people in a way, to show something that hasn't been shown forth in a different way. They are used as a way of communication. Okay. Then the next thing I would say, that in, if you like, the more modern tradition, after the time of Jesus, in the time of the last 2,000 years, there have certainly been those who feel that they have been blessed with dreams and visions which have again shown them on the way. He said it's quite often that extra dynamic of not so much necessarily while we are asleep, but this waking dream, if you like. And I'll just give you one example. There are hundreds throughout history, but one example is a girl called Bernadette, who was 13 years old when she began to have a series of revelations. It was during a period of 6 months. She was a very poor young woman. Her father had got into debt. They'd been thrown into debtor's prison. She was out one day with her relatives looking for wood so that they could build a fire, and she literally was on the village rubbish tip. And on the village rubbish tip, she begins to have a series of waking dreams, as we would say, visions of Mary. Now, that girl and that series of visions were in a really remote part of France that was terribly poor back in the early 19th century. It was ignored by many in authority. No railways, no communications. Today, it is the biggest pilgrimage centre in the world. Why? Because this girl responded to these waking dreams, these visions.
Okay.
Come and receive healing. Basically, is the gist of the series of these waking dreams as they unroll. And today, millions of people every year. It's the biggest centre of Christian pilgrimage. Millions go there. So this girl was somehow chosen out of all the people on earth at that time to establish that place of healing.
Can you summarise in your own words your definition of dreams?
I expect that in fact there are people in a variety of religions who have an appreciation of dreams are a way in which directions can be given at various times, whether that's purely in a personal way of living or whether it's trying to direct a people in a particular way. As I've shown you in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, and in Christian living up until the present day, there are sometimes people who are chosen to receive these dreams or these waking dreams, these visions, as a way of communication. How does that affect us as individuals? Well, I certainly dream. I dream in colour, I dream very vividly. Like most people, I know that I've had a dream, but quite often I can't remember it. But occasionally, I can remember some very vivid details. All I can say is that sometimes I know that I've been helped in making decisions by something that my brain has pondered in those dream hours. That I have come to a decision about something that I need to do or where I need to follow. Now that may just be said by many, and maybe it is, but by my that intellectual process continuing during the hours of rest. But I know that I've been helped to come to a decision. That happens occasionally. I'm not a visionary. I don't, as some people might claim to be. But I do believe that I have been helped. At other times, like other people, I've had nightmares and dreadful dreams. Dreams which are just ridiculous, but nevertheless, that goes on. But there are certain times that I can discern personally that by a dream while asleep, I've been helped to come to realise something more important to do whilst I am then awake.